Hi everyone, it's Rachel Kleinman from rwcrafts.com. Today I am sharing a star-themed art journal page for the 4th of July weekend. I'm starting with these brand new to me sprays from Lavinia. These are mica sprays in the colors Pinkella and Bumblebee. I have never used these sprays before, but I love how vibrant they are. I love how easy they spray out of the bottle. I'm definitely going to go to the Top Flight Stamps website to buy more colors, but I'm happy with the colors that I got and they're blending really nicely. I'm going to start with this star stencil from Craft Emotions, and you can see I have a whole bag of leftover foam applicators. These are from my Distress inks, and now that I use blender brushes, I have all these leftover foam pads and I use them for stenciling. So I just have a whole bunch left over and they're easy to wash out when you're done. So I'm going through in the color Bora Bora, this beautiful teal color. You probably noticed that I use very similar colors often, lots of pinks, yellows, oranges, teals. They work, so why stop? So every time before I put the stencil back on the page, I make sure that the back side of the stencil is clean so that it's not leaving residue that I don't want. Now I'm going in with this Big Brush Pit pen in a purple color, and I'm just going to do some small dashes around where the stars are. Clean off my craft sheet. And I'm going in with another stencil now. This one is from All in Create. It's called Lots of Stars, and I'm using some Cosmic Shimmer paste. I am going to mix the paste with a magenta paint color. You can see that color is called Bougainvillea. And when you're using paint to change the color of your modeling paste, you really just want to use a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, or else it's going to change the consistency of the paste to be too liquidy. So I just did a small little drop there and mixed it around with my palette knife. And I am not happy with that impression of the stencil at all. That was user error. I was not pushing the stencil down enough onto the page. So I'll do better this time. So in my head, I'm thinking that the whole left side of the page is just going to be garbage. But I decided to go for it anyways, and maybe later I can salvage it, because all the stencils on the right hand side turned out really nicely and the ones on the left hand side are a little messy. But we'll go with it. It's an art journal. It's not going to be sold at auctions, so mistakes are okay. So I am going to add some more stars to this page. It is star themed after all. So I just used a Word document and I copied and pasted some stars of different sizes. I actually found these through the clip art, and I printed them on regular printer paper, cut them out, and now I am going to trace them onto a thicker mixed media paper and cut them out again so that I can add some sprays to them and paint them and get them all messy and add them to my art journal page. Now, if you have an electronic cutter, I personally have a Brother Scan and Cut, which I love. You could use your machine to do something like this very, very easily. I just didn't want to do with my machine today. So instead I just did old school print, trace, and cut. This is such a simple shape and design that it's easy for anybody to fussy cut, I think. And you know I love fussy cutting. So now I've put them in my spray box. I am spraying first with Prism ink in Azure Sky. That's that blue color. And then I'm spraying again with the yellow Bumblebee Lavinia mica spray. And I'm completely okay that will mix and get a little bit of green. Earlier in my art journal, I was actually thinking of adding some lime green paint anyways, so I'm happy with the additional green. So now I'm going to go through, now that they're dry, I'm going to go through with my embossing pad, and I'm going to add some embossing powder and heat it up. So on half of the stars, I'm using this pure platinum powder from Wow. On the other half of the stars, I will use a beautiful bluish greenish shimmery color called Capri. So I don't want to have harsh lines from the ink pad, so I'm just going through with a dry brush to scrape off some of the additional powder that I don't want. And you can see I just use a basic printer paper folded down the side to handle all of my embossing powders. Nothing fancy. It's worked for me for 10 years, so don't see a reason to buy anything extreme to deal with embossing powder. And I am just going to heat them with my heat gun, and it will add a really nice shimmer. These embossing powders have a lot of glitter in them as well, so it's going to add a really cool shimmer to all of my stars. There you can kind of see it in the light. And like I said, I'll do the same with the rest, but in a blue. There's the blue one. And I've arranged the stars kind of how I want on my art journal page. You'll see that I change it up in the end. I'm using this VersaFine Claire in Chianti. It's this beautiful, rich red color. And I'm just doing very quick stamping on the stars to add a little bit more color texture to them. You can see I'm not taking the stamping very seriously, just want to add a little more dimension to them. And I'll clean that off and get ready to add my stars to the page. And here you can see me agonizing between the design I want to go for. Ultimately, I choose to have an odd number. I feel like that looks better than having 3 on each side. That would have been too even for my liking. Now, if you've been here before, you know exactly what I'm going to do with this dollar store tool. You know that I like to cut it up and then I will melt it with my heat gun. When you melt it, it kind of crumples it all together. It adds a really cool texture, and it also makes it more visible to the eye because I feel like the tool was so thin and sheer before, and this kind of crumples it up and thickens it. And be very careful because that heat gun is very hot and you really are just kind of melting the plastic. So make sure you're careful with your fingers. And now I'm going to go through with my crumpled up ribbon tool there, and I'm just going to use my tiny attacher to add it to the stars. And I'll add some to each of the stars. Just one staple will do it. That last one gets a whole piece of ribbon all to itself. Now, normally when I'm adhering things like this, I would use like a thick matte medium, but either I couldn't find it or I threw it out because it dried up because I had it for so long. So on this side, I'm using the Liquitex Gloss Gel, which is actually a medium that I would typically use just to adhere the paper. And then I thought, well, I have Distress Medium, so let's use the Distress Medium on the other side. Kind of compare the two to see how they do. And you can see to flatten them, I put a large clear stamping press on top there. Acrylic block, I should say. So these ones are getting the Distress Medium. And I have to say, I put things on top of all of the stars. I went and put away some laundry, gave them time to dry, and I actually think that the Liquitex Gloss Gel, even though I thought it was thinner, I think it held better. You can see I had to go back and even apply more of the Distress Medium. So, lesson learned. Next time I'll just stick with my Liquitex. So here is the finished art journal page. I found a quote from the Tim Holtz Chit Chat stickers. It says, "Be brave with your life." And I hope that you've enjoyed this star-themed art journal. I have to say, this is actually the last page in my Dina Wakely journal. I actually filmed a flip through and then realized that I have a few more pages that I could add some more to. So I'm going to add more to it and then do a flip through later down the line. Here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for joining me. All of the supplies that I've used are listed and linked in the description below. Thank you so much. Bye.